GP, I think to start off, you and I have known each other for a while. I was scrolling back to our DMs. I think like the first time you and I chatted was like IW. It might have been. We may have even like added each other on Twitter prior to that.
Yeah, it's got to be that or
Yeah,
like BO3 maybe. I don't know if you were you working like on the back end or with Phase during BO3.
I was because I was doing like pick and ban stuff. Like that was back in Ban and Protect was early, and
Hmm.
I was there like talking to Ian Clay about how I want to do like Ban and Protect stuff. They need someone to just like scout and do notes. So like I've always said like my famous thing was like they played some online match versus MV, and I got on that day and I was like, we're getting fast. We're playing Pat. We're getting fast hands out of here, boys. Let's get it. And then we stomped them. But no, you and I used to talk about back a lot back in the day. I think to kind of kick things off, like a lot of people who are newer, to the CDL, maybe started watching just when franchising started. They may not know about your kind of first entry into the scene. Talk a little bit about how you got involved at the beginning of COD Stats and how you got involved with the Major League Gaming broadcast team.
Yeah, for sure. So basically it started middle of Ghost. There was actually a Reddit post that Chris Puckett had made. He's my godfather, but he was basically asking for volunteers to help with like tracking stats for I guess the Pro League at that point because of Pro League Stage 1. I guess the first like actual Pro League in Ghost was starting up. So it was me and like 10 other guys just around the US, around Europe, around fucking everywhere. Yes, I swear, just because everyone was just online, and we were just tracking the games because it never had been tracked before. And I just really fell in love with doing that and watching VODs and helping in that sort of sense to actually publish it for people to see. And credit to all the guys that helped out with that. I got super lucky because during I guess it was the start of AW,
Yeah.
my freshman year of college, I had hit up Puckett because I knew the MLG offices were in New York, and I was in New York at the time.
Yeah.
And I was just like, could I like tour the offices or whatever? I've been helping out with COD stuff, so he knew me at that point for a little bit. And then I went in during my winter break of freshman year, and he was like, "Yeah, you want to just intern for the winter?" I was like, "Fuck yeah!" Like, I was so glad that I didn't have anything planned during that winter break, anyways. So I was just going to the offices, helping like run or helping write the esports report, and
Yeah. Great
implement any
show.
like
Great show.
yeah, implement any storylines or stat stuff that I could. Shout out Max, he was my duo during that period too. And that really helped me expand my connections within the scene, especially with MLG.
Yeah.
And throughout that, I developed a connection with them where I could basically help with the events, and because they were looking for someone who could like help the broadcast as like a stats producer who would basically filter any you know number based thing that was on the screen and display that so that they could have it on the broadcast. And yeah, I was super blessed to have that opportunity because I was just going through college at that point, and I was just trying to, schedule my classes so that they weren't on, Fridays, and then I would fly out Thursday night, do the event, and then come back, and it was like a perfect, storm of being able to, have this little side gig of going to the events and also, going to school.
Yeah. I mean, so like back in the day, so you started a website, Codcom Stats. That was you and who were a bunch? You had a bunch of other people, right? You had Quays, Rideout. I think didn't Doug work for you at the end at some point on the
Um,
site?
In the Black Ops 4 is when, or World War II is when I first met him because he had I think he had posted on Reddit, and I was like, yo, your
Yeah.
work was like really cool. I don't know if you remember that, but he was like, it was like sort of player tracking. I
Yeah.
was like, yo, I gotta reach out to this guy because COD Stats has kind of like fizzled out at that point, but we kind of like brought it back, and he helped out like tremendously during World War II Black Ops 4 days. But it was like super good times, and I still have some connections with some of the guys still, and it's super cool to have that opportunity to broaden stats in that way, and you know for something that wasn't being tracked before to actually have some sort of impact on the scene like that was pretty cool.
Yeah. So I pulled up a VOD from season 3 finals, OpTic versus FaZe in AW, and like, at the time, there's no And we'll get to it in a minute. Like, there's no back end stats coming from Activision. Like, you have to manually track everything. And one thing that, because I work for Esports Engine as well, as people know, like, for a lot of the same production staff, there's a stats first broadcast from a storytelling perspective. And I thought what you were able to do when you worked there really effectively was like help them tell better stories, and work with the graphics team, Shy Harrell and co. and the producers on telling good stories, which is really cool to see back then. This wasn't getting done a lot in esports. And again, as I'll get into it now, like you were doing this. It's not like you had an API in real time giving you data. Like you guys had to manually track this stuff. That's part of the reason like Codcom stats and a bunch of other stuff cropped up, because there's really no other way to sort of collect all this information. So like speak on that process and like how things are different now in terms of how you can ingest information from matches and practice.
Yeah, so I wish I had taken more computer science courses during my schooling, because I took like one or two, but then it wasn't until afterwards where I really like self-taught myself to how to use computer vision or use data science to like through R or through Python to actually help me out. And I really wish I'd known that before, because doing manual stuff with screenshots in Excel was just the biggest waste of time looking back on it. But there wasn't really a way for us to capture stats super well other than just as the game was ending, because sometimes the scoreboard didn't pop up or someone would leave a game and you wouldn't get the scoreboard. But so at that point it was just we had a team of guys and someone would get the screenshot, someone would input it into the the Excel sheet or the website, whatever. And nowadays it's a lot easier for me, because I can grab the actual scoreboard at the end of the game, automatically read it, put it into the database or whatever. And for matches, we've gotten super blessed like the past 2 years of the league actually giving us some more detailed data. That's always been a super big issue, because we actually had some really good data, and you probably remember this back in like World War II, IW. Back when Activision had a specific team that was working to, grab it from the backend API. And then once the CDL started, it kind of like phased out. I'm guessing, that team wasn't there anymore or whatever, but they really had a hard time of actually, providing us with sufficient enough data. So that was a really big issue, because we would have to just do it ourselves at that point. But the last 2 years they've really made it an impact, and I think you probably had a really big impact with that. I remember you being on a call with one of the guys at Beanox and helping us out with actually translating some of that those needs to the coaches.
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack here. So on the screen right now, so let's talk about the data of the journey of data in the COD League. So to your point, like there is an era where you guys fully manual entry. There is an era where you and I met for the first time in Orlando, and I don't know if you went to Orlando, right?
Orlando, I remember Orlando BO3. Orlando IW.
Did you go to IW? So when I went to IW Champs, that was in.
Oh yeah, IW Champs. Yeah.
So that's when the Boulder guys. I first met the Boulder guys. So Justin and the other guy. And they basically what they did is on GitHub Gear guys, and you could still see this. This is from like 6 years ago. What they would do is they dump sanitized data from past events. And this was like Black Ops 3. There's some World War II stuff in here as well. And this is like the first set of real data that we got. It was heavily sanitized. There's no positional stuff. Some of the stuff was wrong, and like there
actually is some positional stuff, like kill data. There actually is. Yeah.
But it was the X, Y, and Z stuff was all busted.
Yeah, I mean some of it was busted, but some of it was actually good. And anyone that's trying to like get into analytics and COD or whatever, I always forward them to this page specifically, because this is like the gold mine. Like some of the stuff that we have in this little data set is stuff that we don't even get sometimes now in the league. So this is like the best, at least public data that you will ever be able to get. Hopefully not ever, but for right now, and this was like 6 years ago, 5 years ago, whatever. This is like the gold mine. And me and Doug always were like, if we had this, the first 3 years of CDL would have been so much different, but
Yeah.
this is that was the gold mine of raw data. So like obviously you'd have to tool it yourself and get whatever you wanted and
Yeah.
play with it a little bit, but you can get a lot of stuff from that type of data.
Yeah, they had individual games in here. It was really, really good. I messed around with it a lot. And this was basically a set of guys. I think they were technically contractors for Activision. And they
Yeah,
were
it was like a third-party company or something.
They were a third-party company. I think they were genuinely. I think this was more of a passion project because they were brought on to act. If I remember correctly, and I might be wrong. If someone in the chat knows, I think they were mostly doing multiplayer analysis for Activision.
Yeah.
On player chain and life chain, a bunch of stuff to sort of help them make better game design decisions. And this is more of an offshoot of like, well, how do we mess around with more CDL stuff or CWL stuff? They did this for a while and they stopped pretty much. These guys stopped when the CDL started. So like the last event in here is Black Ops 4 Champs. And when I had talked to them at Black Ops 4 Champs, they weren't sure what was going to be next. The CDL came in. So CDL started. And I know that talking to people at the CDL, that they made some missteps early in regards to data. The broadcast and some of the production people that came in started from scratch, and it was sketchy at best the first couple of years. There are a couple of people, I don't want to necessarily dox them, and I'll reach out to see if they're comfortable. You know the people I'm talking about at Beanox, at Activision, who in the last year or two or three have really started to develop better solutions for storing that data. They had sort of a V1 platform they used. I believe now they're on a, I don't want to say what platform they're on now, because again, I don't want to like break any NDAs. That's not when I leave these sports center. But my point is, Chad, like if you go to the CDL website now and you pull up any match, right? I have, for example, your guys' absolutely choke slam series against London. You can download the stats now, which is really cool. And they're actually.
I actually didn't even know that. I just used their backend website, but I didn't. That's pretty cool.
It exports a PNG, so it's not that cool. But it's not like a CSV. But yeah, no, they have a backend website. We used to use that, and I think the EE team does, because they actually now have. It's gotten to the point now, Chad, that they went from manual entry to all the data that you see on broadcast. I believe now is all API triggered.
Yeah,
so
100%.
They've now
actually last year Carson. I'm going to give big props to Carson, because he was doing manual and he was doing some really cool stuff. And, I wasn't even doing that type of stuff manual back in the day. And I'm thinking to myself, like, I'm doing all that type of stuff manually, like the hold stuff, the break stuff, the stuff you would see last year. And I was like, man, he's doing all of that manual. That's crazy. That's
he's crazy.
That's incredible passion to do that, honestly.
So story time was, we got hit up September, October of 2021 of, hey, the broadcast production team is being kind of phased out. We want to bring in a vendor. Do you guys want to bid? We bid. We won the bid. So we had to come in pretty quick. If you guys remember, Kickoff Classic was like end of January. So we were coming in fresh. Keep in mind that Esports Engine, a lot of ex-MLG people working on the old broadcast, but JP wasn't there anymore. So okay, we need a stats producer. So we got I think I talked to, I don't remember who I talked to. It was either you or Doug, or I had just known. Carson basically became the mega frontrunner, because Carson has his own website, was definitely focused on analytics, also definitely had a good knowledge of R and stuff like that. So he was going to be well suited for the kind of how fast the broadcast production environment is at events. And he came in and he was basically like, we didn't have any API at that point. Again, stuff was just starting to spun up with his V2 solution, which kind of happened at the tail end of the year. And he was doing a lot of stuff manual, and his process was insane. And he was also insanely fast at it, which blew my mind. Like, it wasn't like, super, super slow. Like, he said a lot of the groundwork that Breaking Point's using now, and how efficiently they can get data on the broadcast. And chat, more importantly, and you never really notice this if you're watching, is making sure the talent is informed on the storylines. Talent, the one thing I'll tip CDL talent for that doesn't get discussed a lot, is that they are, I know with the producers, they love to lean in this. The talent itself is very aware of the scene, the storylines, and they can help guide a lot of the conversation and dictate to the production staff and the stats producer on what information they want to see. And in turn, get that information quickly is really key. So whenever you hear broadcasts, you see the graphics come on, a lot of that's driven by talent, and being able to workflow that quickly is really key. So now I would love to see where I was going with this is I think the next step in this, because now that this data is being tracked on the back end, there's a lot more here than you guys see. Like there's positional stuff, there's a bunch of other stuff. I would love to see them make sort of a public leaderboard at some point on this website. Would be really cool.
Yeah, for sure.
Because they track a lot of really cool stuff on the back end. So we can get to more data stuff at the end. I want to get to more topical stuff and then kind of back up a sec. So you're now on OpTic. Obviously, you guys have had a fun journey this year. Let's kind of start on the front end of it. You guys are coming off a really good performance at Major 3. You guys got runners up. Second, I think what really obviously was probably the thing that came up short you guys this event was control and sort of decision making at times, especially in that hotel search. Like, are you guys feel like you made good inroads into those areas so that you can make you don't have to make that much of a deeper run you did at the last event, but get over that hump and win one of these next couple of majors or champs?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so after the major, we really, we talked to each other and we were like, if we're going to contend on Sundays, like, we need to be better at control. And I think we got so much more excited in scrims with control, similar to how we were getting excited with hardpoint scrims and like before the major. And we've improved on it like drastically, and I just want us to like obviously translate that into matches. But it's like it's refreshing for us to be like more actually excited for control and control maps during the scrims rather than just the hard points. Obviously the new map coming in, creates a little refresher and, it gets everyone excited too. But, just in general and like the other maps, like Asilo and Hotel, like people or the players are way, way more excited and actually playing those.
Yeah, I know this has been, I've been surprised with this some of the collection of these players. I know the OpTic roster has gone through changes last year. But I'm surprised at the control circles they've had for over a year now. But I agree with you guys that like that's that area of improvement would help a lot. I don't know. Remember, do you know what the win percentage is here? Teams that win map 3, what percent of the time they win a series? It's got to be super high. Right?
I don't know the exact percentage, but it's like it is a big mode because of the swing potential of it. If you're not having that swing potential or like that closeout potential, let's say you're up 2-0, like it is a big map, and for it to be. It's a singular game mode. You only play one of it, but it is like an impactful game mode for sure.
It's like what happened to London last year. This doesn't get discussed a lot, but London last year, like last month and a half of the season, they were actually pretty good at hardpoint S&D, but they could not win a control to save their lives, and then got reverse swept so many times because they went up 2-0 and couldn't close out. Or to the point is like you get in a mixed 1-1 series, you win that swing mode, it takes the pressure theoretically off that you need to force a game 5, win 2 in a row to win a series. You can battle with the team and trust your search if you get their map 5, which you guys are obviously good at. So I think definitely that path forward is really key. I want to kind of touch on another question, sort of more recent memory, and then we'll kind of back up more to the beginning of this offseason. I got a question on from people that saw Ant did a video recently, was talking on stream. I don't know. He says a lot for 5 and 10 gifted these days. But how you guys have sort of mixed up your practice recently. Have you guys started to sort of, I know sometimes you're constrained by, you don't want to scrim the teams that you're going to play in a given split. Have you guys started to expand your practice a little more to teams you didn't play traditionally to try and make sure?
I know where this is going, Ben.
Yeah.
Ben, you could just say it. I know where this is going.
No, I mean, you just speak on it then, because I think everybody knows.
Yeah, no. So obviously he's talking about phase, and this was a discussion that we had, and we were obviously doing well in scrims and hardpoint, and we brought it up, and we were like, we needed to diversify our scrims at some point, because as you said, most teams don't want to scrim the teams that they're playing on that stage, so that cuts off five teams, so that means you're left with playing 6 teams, and if you're not scrimming one of them, then that means you're playing one team, the same team every other day. If that makes sense, because it's 6 teams or 5 teams, and you have 6 scrim blocks in 3 days. So it was a big discussion for us, and it's not like we're playing them every other day. We play them maybe once, maybe twice, or I think twice since the major. And it's still a discussion that we're having on if we want to continue playing on whether it benefit us, if it's benefiting them too much. But honestly, it was really just to try and diversify. And if we're going to be, a good hardpoint team, we want to remain on top and just honestly just see what other teams are doing, because I think that's how you stay ahead, right? That's how you maintain your dominance in one game mode, is at least seeing what other teams are doing, just in case. So we played them like twice, and it was a good, obviously, diversification. We're not sure. We're still having an internal discussion on if we want to continue that. But yeah, I mean, it was just something where we want to just new fresh opponents, honestly.
I see a lot in the chat. I feel you on that. I think traditionally, I've had this conversation a lot with players, and if you look at the matchups that have happened at Champs the last couple of years, it wouldn't shock you if I told you all that like those two teams that played in those finals generally scrimmed each other a lot during the season, because and you probably agree, JP. You would rather scrim teams that are going to show up on time, go hard, always be innovating, not be lazy. Like those are the best teams to practice because you're getting good reps, regardless if they're learning or not learning or getting ahead or not. Like it's better for your practice than playing a team that's going to get on, be lazy, not try, not rotate, and then you guys are going to develop bad habits because the team you're playing in is not going 100%.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I mean, honestly, and I see in the chat, but it doesn't only just benefit FaZe. Obviously, it benefits us because we're seeing what other teams are doing. But what I'm saying is like it's like a very tough decision, because obviously those are talented players, and if they get on the right note on hardpoint, they're a very scary team. And obviously they're struggling right now in the game mode, and that's just a tough decision that we have to make. And for right now, we're still talking about it, but it's not like we're playing them every other day. It's like we've literally played them twice in the past 2.5 weeks. So I don't know. I think Ant was kind of gassing in the stream too, but it's not as big of a deal as it probably was sounding like.
Yeah, no, Ant is always gassing stuff on the stream, but to my point, like LA Thieves and FaZe scrimmed each other last year a lot. Toronto and FaZe scrimmed each other a lot the year prior. Modern Warfare 2019, Dallas and FaZe scrimmed each other a lot. I know LA Thieves and United played a lot and played at a lot of boot camps with each other. It's like good teams are always going to gravitate towards playing each other in practice, as long as you're not playing them in a split, because it's always going to be like your best path to get better. Don't worry about like. I mean, there's obviously considerations on tactics, and that's why you may not want to play that team like a best of 11 S&D type situation. When it comes to like respawn, once everybody knows the game, that's going to get you the best practice on a given day. So I know in the past,
and
the FaZe
I agree too. I'm
always,
just saying there is a difference right now, as you can see, because they've even said that they've been struggling in the game mode. So it's like that's where it's like the tough decision, obviously. Like obviously, if they were good, if they were dominating in hardpoint, we would want to be scrimming them too. But and I wasn't there for whatever the past year, or whatever, when they weren't scrimming them. So I don't know what the consensus was on that. But there is a difference right now, and that's where we're going off of right now.
So let's speak on that. So we talked a little bit about. I'm gonna back up and then we'll get to it. So you were at MLG for a while. Black Ops 4 and a year rolls around. Talk me through the process and how you decided to leave sort of the broadcast production role and join New York Subliners and their new organization.
Yeah, so it was a pretty easy choice for me, because I'd only been reached out to by like a couple of teams, and New York obviously being my home state, hometown, it was a pretty easy choice for me. They had actually reached out to me pretty early. I want to say in like April or May of that year, when they were first realizing that they were going to have a team, and it was a pretty easy decision, or not a pretty easy decision. It's a pretty easy decision to leave the broadcast end, because I was just freelancing. I wasn't actually like
you're on a full-time employee.
I wasn't a full-time employee. Yeah, I was a contractor for each of the events. So it's easy for me to say I don't really want to do the broadcast work, because I did always want to try and help out a team, because I think I get enjoyment from finding strengths and weaknesses from a team and helping them improve in any sort of way that I could. So the big thing was for me was I was at that point applying to law schools in New York, and I had been accepted. So it was like, do I continue on the law school route, or take this quote unquote dream job? And I ended up taking the job, because I was like, at this point I'll defer maybe I'll come back to it next year. Maybe I'll just, it'll always be there if I wanted to do that or do that route. So, yeah, it's I guess not really a decision anymore because I really like what I'm doing. So, yeah, that was a pretty easy decision. And then obviously New York was the team that I wanted to help out, and I was there from like the early stages of that.
Yeah, I mean, so you never got approached like when you're having these conversations, sort of like spring, summer. I know like the broadcast teams were transitioning. Did like the new team coming in ever have a conversation with you? You never got approached by like the then people that were going to be the new producers, new heads of broadcast over at Activision when they were taking things back over for the CDL.
The new heads, I had met one guy once, and he was like, oh, what are you doing for like the stat stuff? And he was like, oh, can you send me that? And I was thinking to myself, like, why would I send him this? Like, no, like I'm not gonna send you, like, this is my work. Like, it was literally my R code. I'm like, I'm not gonna send you that. Like, you can make your own thing,
Yeah, I feel
So
that.
it got off to a really weird start there, but that was the only time I was approached to anyone on the like back end side for the new CDL.
Yeah. Yeah, and those people were there. Now they've transitioned off. I think some of them are still around and do more of an oversight role, but all of your old coworkers now, and some new folks now run the broadcast, which is great. And I want to get them on. People like I've guessed up like John Fenton a lot. John did not work CDL before until last year, and he's been crushing it. So, so you joined New York. You guys had an interesting couple of years on New York. You guys had some good teams. You went to some events. You guys definitely had some, the players themselves had some lows, some interpersonal stuff. Like, I don't want to get into all of that in particular, but I think a good question to ask is like, for you, as that was sort of your first team job, like what are some lessons you learned from all of those different situations that you had to deal with over the couple of years in New York?
Oh, that first year was the biggest learning experience for me. Because I had never sat in on a scrim or anything at that point. I never worked with players. I never worked with a team. So actually, learning the game from a deeper perspective, because I was never like super intensely looking at the mini map or just dissecting plays as like the stats guy. I probably should have been, but that just wasn't my area of improvement that I wanted to go down, because it was a lot of work. But once I was like full time with a team, that's where I realized, everyone has that thing where it's like, oh, you're just numbers. It's like, no, I realized that there's a lot more to it than numbers, and obviously that's a super cliche thing to talk about, but it's like there was a lot more to it. VOD wise and dissecting plays, whatever. But yeah, that was a really good improvement year for me, because at first I had to earn the respect of the guys, because it was like I was just coming in from being the stats guy at MLG to here's your analyst for your team. So I had player to player relationships, player to coach relationships. A lot of that I had to start off a little obviously humble, but I had to start off with just learning. And I probably didn't talk much in scrims for the first month and a half, because I was just literally digesting everything at once. And Bobble was really good with helping me with that. Same with Lamar. I've been really blessed the last few years to get have people basically take me under their wing in terms of game knowledge. Think about it like Revin, Clay, Lamar, Prim. Like there's a lot of players, like very very smart players, that I was able to help coach, and that just improved my game knowledge to another extent, because I've always been analytics based, but once you can pair that with VOD, or once you compare that to good plays and actually dissect it from a deeper level than just the numbers, that's where you have the separation from everyone else.
Yeah, I feel that because Lamar is a great example, because I think well, I think Lamar kind of understands both sides of it, but he's also like, I think Marion kind of always looking at data, and then like situationally it doesn't always play out that way, and that there are certain ways you need to tweak it based on the personnel you have. Like people in my chat are talking about Tom. Like you can speak on like having to work around. I love Tom's play style, but it's a little bit different from others. Having to work around that, and his tendencies are definitely provide a challenge if you're just looking at straight data and trying to Like you can't fully optimize COD just based on numbers. Is what I'm saying.
Oh
You probably
yeah,
agree.
for sure. Oh yeah, like dude, I realized that like literally first month of MW, I was like, oh no,
Well,
I've
especially
been
in that
having the
game, especially in that game with squad
yeah,
spawns. Good luck
yeah.
with that.
I was like, I was like, oh, I've been having the wrong like outlook on this entirely, um, and that really is a lot of the perspective that a lot of people have nowadays, where it's just they take in the numbers, they don't take in the context of the thing. You know, they see and have a point 0.9, and he's challenging things that they think he shouldn't chow, but it's like he's doing it for a reason. You could make fun of him and on stream and him being idiot in some areas on stream, but he's a very very smart player, and I don't know how much people realize that. Um, I should have included Ann on that list too, but yeah, the extent to stuff that he can do is mind blowing to me, honestly.
Just don't ask him geographical trivia or
Yeah.
or like pop
And
culture
dude,
trivia.
I'm convinced he puts on a show, dude.
No,
I'm
he
convinced.
definitely is. There's definitely extent. I love Ant, but like but Ant knows, bro. Ant also knows the sort of image he has right now, and he definitely leans into it sometimes.
Yeah, there's literally one map that I'll pinpoint. It was the stage 1 playoffs, the major versus Florida. Actually, in the match we lost, but the map 1, you probably remember. It's a Hotel Hardpoint. Anyone can go back onto this. This is the one he fried on.
Yeah.
But this map was one of the most like. I don't know. It was one of the most impressive things I've ever seen because he was literally calming UAV but also dropping the craziest stat line too. And that was, obviously we talk about Dan now helping out with the IGLing and being that UAV for the rest of the team. But I realized the extent of what Ant could do. And obviously you can't, hold that up every time you play a hard point because it's a very, very hard thing to do.
Hard.
But when you're on that point and when you can do that and when you have that map, it's super impressive, honestly.
So yeah, I want to talk about the OpTic stuff. So you were obviously in New York. You won a couple of events. There definitely you had to deal with all Clay stuff, all the Crimsic stuff. There's just a lot going on.
Yeah, there was a lot going on last year.
A lot.
Or this year, right now, it's a lot less stressful.
I feel you on that, and with some of that was exposed on the flank, which you can go back and watch that episode.
Some of it, there was a lot of it.
There's a lot. Okay. So that off season approaches. It seems like the New York situation is definitely much in flux. How did the OpTic conversation start? Like, were you approached by RAMBO? Were you approached by someone else, sort of in an off season?
I'd always talked to Ray, and he was like, "Oh, we want to bring you on." I think he actually reached out to me after the MW season too.
Oh, interesting.
But they just didn't have the funds for what I was trying to do because I'd only signed a 1-year contract with New York my first year because I was like, oh, maybe I'll go back to law school if I don't like it. And then so they reached out to me, but it was just nowhere near what I was getting paid in New York.
This is Dallas Empire, right? This is NV.
Yeah, this is Dallas Empire going into Cold War. So I knew Ray had always wanted to work with me, and I always loved his insight on the game and working with him. But it was after I posted that free agent tweet, Hastra had reached out to me.
Okay.
And it was like, oh, you want to talk?
Stroh's always been people may not know this, but Stroh's talked about it. In fact, he talked about it on a podcast. Nameless and I did it years ago. Even back when Stroh was picking up CS teams, when he picked up the French team in CS, Stroh's always been super high on the data stuff. So I'm not surprised that he was the first one to reach out. And sort of from there, after Stroh talked to you, when you sat down, did Ray take over the conversation? How did it go and to end up to you getting signed on OpTic this offseason?
Well, I think Ray was the one who probably messaged Stroh and was like, "Yo, we should pick this guy up" or whatever. But it was mainly Stroh after that. Yeah, it was mainly Stroh and Ray.
So your first experience on OpTic was dealing with all of the Major 1 stuff, and kind of from your perspective, talk us through kind of how that whole cycle felt, and then kind of from your end, sort of the changes that you guys made after sort of the disappointment in Major 1.
Major 1, that seems like a long time ago.
Oh, it feels like an eternity ago, but it was what? 7 months ago, 8 months ago?
Yeah, so a lot of this stuff stemmed from before I joined the team. So I can't really speak on that because it's not my position to speak on whatever they were going through last year and whatever went through the off season and then continued on into stage one. But I kind of had to revert back to what I was doing in MW at the beginning, where I was kind of more taking a little bit of a step back because I need to gain the trust of the players again because it was a
Okay.
completely new set of players.
Yeah.
So I was easily approaching that a little bit more. But I think a lot of it just stemmed from the previous year, so I can't really, I can't really speak on that. And I don't
That's
really
fine.
want to speak on that because it's not my position to do that.
Totally understand because you weren't there last year when some of
Yeah.
that baggage has kind of been a thing. And I talked to Bruce on this at one point. He spoke on that, so I don't think we necessarily need the perspective. Where I'm curious about is obviously Ray brought you on, and then when Bruce was off the team and then back on the team, it seemed like Ray kind of also was then off the team. Speak on, if you don't mind, that situation and how your responsibilities have changed since Ray has taken a step back from things.
I don't know how much I can speak on it. It was a organization decision that I didn't have. I'm just working with what I got.
Yeah.
The cards that I was dealt is what I was dealt with, and you just have to work with that. So obviously my role has been bigger. Call me whatever you want. Call me analyst. Call me coach. I don't care. I'm just trying to improve the players and get them to play the best that they can. Whatever that is up to you guys. I'm just trying to help out in any way that I could. It's been a really weird situation because of that, but it's been a big learning experience for me because it's more of a bigger role, obviously. And I'm doing it alone for right now. But the team is really making that job easy because they are disgusting. And I think the inclusion of Dan has helped that out a lot. But all the guys they're super easy to work with when you're working with them in a specific way. And that was a big thing that I realized, where it's like you got to tailor the way you want to work with a team with the players that you have. And that's something that I've realized, going back to the MW days, because it's like, you got to talk to one person separately or differently than the way you talk to somebody else. And it's a really big thing that I don't think, I don't think a lot of people realize, and they probably should realize, but the way one person takes criticism is going to be very, very different.
Yeah.
From the way another person does. And I don't know, it's a very big mindset discussion that people can have on what they want to do in terms of actively coaching a team or actively getting the best out of someone. But I just think you have to take it case by case basis, honestly.
Yeah, no, I've had this conversation with Crowder a lot, even behind the scenes. When I talk to Chin and Cap and our coaches a lot, and this is like one of the hardest things in CDL, which or really just in COD, I guess in any esport is people's ways to learn are all different. Some people are more visual learners. Some people take more time to kind of ingrain sort of the base rules that you want to set. Some people are going to be very confrontational when approached if they're doing things the wrong way. Some people are going to instantly just be a sponge and absorb things and not make mistakes again. And where a lot of players, and just I'll kick you in a second, I'm sorry. And you probably agree with this statement, as I want to set you up on this, is like, I think maybe sometimes certain players and coaches in the last couple of years have realized that the old school like COL kind of style of everybody's just sort of edgy and you argue and you kind of figure it out doesn't necessarily work with some of the newer generation of players. Do you feel that way?
Yeah. And dude, honestly, you just sometimes they need to be in the right environment. Like look at Kyler, dude.
Yeah.
Like he was flipping teams in Cold War, and then he was dropped this year by LEG for free. We pick him up. He just needs to be in a good environment for him to actually bring out his level of like what he can do. Because that guy is disgusting. He just needed to be in the right environment, and I think him and Ant coincide really well. Because, dude, there was a play yesterday where we're breaking on Hotel P2, and they didn't even need to talk, and they did the exact same movement together, And they laughed, dude.
It was just
They
like,
laughed because they straight up got collided by someone, but they laughed because they were like, "Oh, we literally did the exact same movement." So them being on that type of same page is crazy to me. So yeah, sometimes it is just the being in the right environment.
from your end, so I know it sounds like you picked up some additional responsibilities in your role is whatever it needs to. Have you guys discussed bringing in, as we get towards champs and maybe just some of the sort of preparation work or even in scrims work that might be required? Have you guys thought about bringing in at least one or two other persons to kind of assist you in the team with getting the guys in the right kind of spot going to those events?
I'll be honest, that's not my area. That's more management. That's more the players. If they want to do that, they can do that. I'm just here for the ride and doing whatever role that I need to be doing. Honestly, that's not a question that I can.
I feel you on that because people keep putting in my chat about like Damon joining coaching. Karma's been our watch party saying that he wants to coach, but like I know Damon. I don't know how real that is, but I feel you. That's not necessarily your decision. You're just trying to do what's best by what you've been brought on to do. So I feel you.
Yeah.
Feel you on that one. I had an interesting question on Twitter. So now that you're kind of doing the blend role, so this is a little bit. You can probably speak to this. It was from Wusik on Twitter.
The what role?
Sort of a blend role of being analyst coach.
Oh,
but
okay.
you'll see where I'm going with this question. How is the dynamic between analyst and team different from coach and team? How does the analyst approach a team when it becomes clear what areas you need to improve? Basically, my question was like, when you were in the pure analyst role, like how did you approach bringing a team in? Hey, like we need to focus on X, Y, and Z as opposed to now where you're like the only person in the room.
Honestly, it hasn't really changed. It's the same type of mindset. Honestly, like people call me solo analyst for the other teams I play, but I was kind of doing I was doing coaching regardless too. Like the analytics is just the way that I bring the stuff into it. Obviously in MW I didn't really have as much of a voice because I was just trying to learn as much. But Cold War and last year, like I was still like helping the team out in certain ways that a coach would. So I don't know. I think the analyst quote unquote role gets blown like into a different proportion. But yeah, it's pretty much the same thing. We're struggling on this. What are we doing here? What can we improve? Blah blah blah. We're really good at this. Keep it up this way. But yeah, so it's basically the same type of thing.
Yeah, I feel you. I feel you on that. Let's move on. I got a couple more like assorted questions. I'll say that one for the end because it's a funny one. One thing that always gets discussed and I know you guys kind of dealt with it with making a decision on dropping Ender is sort of what you have to go through when you want to rotate a player out or big of a roster change. From your perspective, I'm saying this in general. This is just sort of more of a like hypothetical kind of blue sky thing. From your perspective, when you're looking to bring into a player in a roster, provide recommendation on a player coming in, like what are the KPIs, the things that you look for in potential talent that you want to bring into your organization?
Well, if we're talking about specifically the dance stuff, that was brought up to me and just being like, yo, what do you know about this guy? Because I guess they had already talked to other people, and they were like, what do you know about this guy? You think he'd be a good fit? I was like, yeah, sure. That I've seen good things from him in Challengers. He fried in the last Challengers event. I remember, watching some of the stuff in the Vanguard tournaments. So I was like, yeah, it sounds like a good fit. Obviously the whole roster change thing wasn't a decision that was made by me. It was just, kind of brought up by everyone. I was like, okay, I'm fine with whatever you guys do. That's not my area. But in terms of KPIs, like I don't really want to delve too deep into it, but obviously it's more than just KD. Like there's VOD research that goes into it. There's, I would love to have more detailed stats like I do with the CDL for challengers. That's something I really want. I know there are people who do manual stuff, but it's not to the same level that we get for matches. So honestly, in the future, I would really like that. But there's more than obviously just KD that goes into it.
Yeah, I think for challengers data, one thing that I've always wondered is at a certain point. And I think part is just organizationally on the CDL side, because I think people rotate in and out that are running challengers and they haven't had sort of the right amount of staff on their side that can really focus on it. First point is like they play on the retail bill right now. I don't know if their APIs can pull, if you're given a game ID from the retail build, how much they can actually pull, or if it's all on the esports build side. So
I
theoretically,
think
go ahead.
yeah, no, I think it is on the esports build side, like
Yeah,
because we're able to like at least for scrims we're able to like pick our servers and stuff.
yeah,
So I think that all goes into the esports build. So it's not something that they can easily do because you know they still have people hosting and stuff. So
yeah.
it's not like that's where they get it. They get it from the servers. So I don't know how soon we are to or how viable that is in the close future, but obviously I would like that in the possible further future, whatever that is. The fact that we just got data in the last 2 years for the pro league, we at least have that. So the challenger stuff, if it needs to wait, it can wait, obviously, but would like it as soon as possible for
Yeah,
sure.
I think for challengers, I've had discussion with people over there. I think step one is for the elite probably next year is like how do you get those challengers teams once they qualify, get them accounts on the esports build. You get a lot of benefits to that. To your point, we take away the point-to-point hosting issues. Like there's a word that gets used a lot. This video's going on YouTube. I don't want to say it, so I get demonetized. But it's like host effing.
Yeah,
It's sort of the phrase that people use a lot. You kind of take that a lot of play, and you'd be able to do sort of the same ping testing, find neutral location hosts. I don't know how it would happen in Europe because right now in CDL everybody's based in North America. I guess Europe would be a whole thing. But get them on the esports build. To your point, then you'd be able to track all their match ideas and datas, and that would help with CDL teams making decisions, and maybe that would incentivize CDL teams from picking up more academy teams. But I feel you right now, like the best data that people have is I know that like Easy Mac and the Breaking Point guys do the data for challengers, and that's all manual entry. And I can't tell you how many times people rage quit lobbies in challengers. It is actually so frustrating. People in challengers complain all the time on Twitter, and I see it in the broadcast too, Chad, about how their stats or this that aren't being covering. And I see those same teams are the ones where people rage quit, and it's like, well, the reason your stats aren't on the sheets quickly is because poor Easy Mac and all the people at Breaking Point need to go back and manually watch the match now because you effed up all the stats and they can't actually do it. And they're going to have to manually count kills, which is not ideal. So
yeah, that's the thing with the API. The API can track if someone leaves and gets their their final stats. That was always the funny thing because like people in like BO4 like IW would leave the game thinking that we wouldn't track the stats, but the API would actually catch it anyways.
Yeah.
So it didn't really matter. But yeah, it's just a priority thing on Activision's side, and obviously stats for the challenger system is not something that is their priority right now, as we can see. They have bigger things that they need to worry about or whatever their priority is, but at some point, it would be cool.
Yeah, I feel you on that. I've had a discussion with people at the league, and I think it's going to be time. It's just hard to onboard people on the esports build super quick. Like the turnaround time for people qualifying in the elite is pretty fast. So it's just what happens when then people don't qualify for the elite? How do you make sure they uninstall the esports build? I think there's a lot of like operational sort of issues they would need to figure out, but that would kind of, I think, help kind of solve some of the issues that second tier Call of Duty has right now. So that would be really cool. A couple other questions. So I saw one in the chat. It's probably the last kind of OpTic specific question I have. It was Junior in the chat was asking about Dan joining the team. What has it been like when he was sort of playing a sort of different role in his challengers team? He's now coming to your squad and been very much kind of the pace setter in game. Kind of people call it the IGL, but I hate that word or hate that phrase. Like, can you speak on sort of how he or how you've tried to help him adjust to the role that he needs to fit on the squad?
Honestly, he didn't really need much help at all. Like he's a very smart player, as you can probably tell, but he was able to transition like almost seamlessly. Like he knew what his role was going to be when joining the team, and he was like, I'm fine with that as long as we win, obviously. So it was a really good mindset from the start, and he's been able to translate that seamlessly because he realizes that, he's like, dude, I'm gonna be the next Damon, bro. I'm gonna be the facilitator for this team. Because that's what they needed me to do. Like if they need to block, I can block. And there was a really funny interaction where he was like, he was doing so much that he was like, I think it was the first day of scrims. He was like, yo, Kyler, I'll bait for you right here. and he slides in first, and Kyler gets a kill. And after the map, Kyler literally goes up to him. He goes, "Never do that again." He's like, "I slide in first for you. Like I'm the sub, bro." And I thought that interaction was so funny to me because it's such like a good mindset.
Yeah.
From both of their sides, because both of them wanted to be selfless, and obviously like Kyler realized like, dude, don't ever do that. It was like the funniest thing, but.
I was trying to imagine Kyler saying that because he's not like the way Kyler talks is just like him pulling out that card is probably like oh shit.
No, yeah, exactly. But yeah, Dan has translated like pretty seamless. Like he's everything you could have asked for to help this team out, and yeah, he's a great player.
Cool. I'm gonna need to fix my headset cable. It's stuck under my chair. But while I do that, I'm going to ask you another question if you don't mind. Rank plays obviously become a big thing that came out. Was it a month or so at this point? A little bit longer than that. A lot of your players have been playing ranked, but it hasn't hurt your placing so far. Do you think though that people that play a lot of rank play and maybe don't really think about or develop bad tendencies, do you think that's real or do you think that's kind of overblown?
No, I don't think so. I think it's way overblown. As long as you're doing the stuff in practice that you talk about it, like there's no way ranked is making you have bad tendencies. It's just getting on and playing when you don't have 8s or whatever scrims to play. It's that's overblown for sure.
I think it's the same thing as 8s, dude. If you're going in with the right mindset of like I'm having fun, maybe I'm trying to learn some stuff, but I'm like I think there could be a danger. It's probably more so an 8s thing than it is a rank play thing of like certain confidence plays that you try in that like you do that in a real match, you're probably screwed. Just because people are going to be more punishing. But I do think the rank play thing is a little overblown at this point. Maybe there was like I think the more issue with rank play actually is less about the reps you get in rank play and more people chalking their schedule and their routine. You know what I mean? And just like playing rank play and like going up too late and then not getting the proper sleep or the proper nutrition going into a match, and then they're in a completely wrong mindset going into a super important thing. I think that's more of the like downside of ranked, you know?
But I don't really think you see pro players doing. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong, but I feel like players realize that they have a job to do, and it's not like they're like, I don't know, staying up super late before a match just to play ranked. I don't know. Maybe that is, but as long as they're able to be attentive and good on match days, then whatever works for you, dude. Like, I don't know. Yeah,
no, there are a couple. Tommy and I had a conversation with someone on the stream about that. That like they told us when he was waking up, and I was like, I don't know about all that, but yeah, I feel you. And I think D-Real in the chat makes a good point. It really depends on the individual. A lot of people have been around for a long time and they kind of know how to develop their routine over the course of a season and not deviate from it. And also when they play 8s or ranked, like they don't develop bad tendencies, but some players are rookies and they may need to learn those things, which is totally understandable because they've never really like experienced that like before.
It's all about how you manage it.
Yeah.
If you can manage it, sure. But obviously, if you can't manage it well or it is creating bad tendencies, then it's not something that you want to be doing, obviously.
So I got Basic on Twitter. He actually asked me this question, too, in a Q&A video that's coming out today. Supposedly, the SAE has been fixed. Have you heard about this? That supposedly, they finally patched the SAE. And I was curious if you've heard this and if you think it might be viable to come back in now.
I didn't hear that, and that's not up to me. That's a rep chat GA question.
No, I know, but I'm asking you, like, from your perspective, if the SE was fixed, right? You didn't have the UAV kind of issue with it, the multi-ping issue. Like, if it functioned as a one ping go, do you think it would be like potentially something to discuss in that rep chat about bringing back in?
I mean, yeah, sure. It's potentially. I think people are getting more comfortable with the cruises now. I mean, yeah, I guess it could be. But how many times, Ben, has something been GA'd and ever came back into the league?
It never happens, bro.
Exactly. So that's why it makes me think that it's never going to happen.
Dude,
so
Ghost
there's your answer.
Ghost is a great example of this. They banned like the M8 early on in the season, then it got patched, and they never brought it back in.
Yeah,
it's like
things just don't get brought back. It's been a thing since the past 10 years. Like
I know it's a problem with the process, and my chat is so tired of hearing me complain about the process, but. We'll save the YouTube viewers in the chat away from that one. I got a couple more questions and we'll take a few from the chat. Just to people keep asking about this in chat. So you're a big hockey fan. So my question to you is how many games are Devils gonna win in their series loss to the Rangers in a few weeks?
Yeah. All right. That's a great question, Ben. Nah, the Devils are winning that series for sure.
I don't know, dude.
Dude, Jack Hughes is about to cross 100 points.
It's the weird. It's one of the
That guy's
weirdest.
disgusting.
He is disgusting, and you guys have gone. I mean, the Devils and Rangers journeys have been interesting for the last few years. Both have had to rebuild in the last 4 or 5 seasons. The Rangers
For us, has been fucking 10.
Yours maybe is a little bit longer. We also lost Lou left and like a bunch of other stuff. You guys have whiffed on some draft picks, but the last couple of years it started to like tick in now.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a weird playoff series because there's no travel. Everybody's at home. Everybody can play from their facility for warm-ups in the shoot-arounds and practice, and then go to the Prudential Center or go to Madison Square Garden. But I'm really excited to see this series because these teams have, whenever they played in the playoffs, it's always been good. That was a long time ago.
Their playoff series are always like super hype.
So I see people.
I still remember raging about the Sean Avery thing. You remember that?
Yeah, Sean Avery's a.
That was, dude. I was literally raging at my screen. I was probably we were probably like 10 or something.
Probably like 10.
Yeah, I was just like, what is he doing? Like, he can't do that.
They made that a rule, right? You can't wave your stick. And guys, if you remember, Sean Avery was like an enforcer. This is back when enforcers were a thing in hockey, and he was just a goon. And he had an incident with Marty Brodeur where he was just standing in front of goal, like waving a stick. And I'm pretty sure they made that illegal now. I'm pretty sure there's a Sean Avery rule that you can't do that. But like he was a dunce, but we'd also like lose to the Devils a lot. But yeah, no, it should be a lit playoff series because I think both teams are very good. They've stacked up a bit since the deadline. They're both in good form. And are either of them going to beat Boston if they get through? I don't know, but I'm excited at least for round 1 of that series. And then Carolina also is a little banged up now, so whoever wins the Jersey Rangers series might actually win the next round too against Carolina. Maybe I'm delusional. I don't know. Mm-hmm. And people in the chat are saying Leafs, bro. Y'all realize the Leafs haven't won a playoff series in like forever?
Yeah, let's see if they get past the first round first before we start talking about it.
Although my question to you, JP, because I've actually managed a bunch of people. Like we go to Toronto in like a month and a couple of weeks, 6 weeks. If the Leafs are actually in the playoffs, are you down to go to a game? Because you and I have been to hockey games before.
As long as everything lines up with schedule-wise, I might actually be down.
You and I have gone to games before. They've been Devils. I think we went to.
It was the Devils Blue Jackets one with Fike. Remember that?
Yeah, I went with Fike, and I don't think the Devils won that one.
No, we got smoked.
I think you guys got smoked. But yeah, no, I told like Seabass, I was like, bro, like the face round guys, I'm like, I will pay any amount of money to go to a Leafs playoffs game. It's probably gonna be racks. I'll be honest. If we want to go, be prepared to spend money.
Actually, now you think about it, I was like, damn, it actually might be super
expensive.
But
like Brandon might go with us. Like Brandon might be down. We can get hella heads, is what I'm saying. I think there'll be a number of people. We'd have to pay cash. I asked Seabass because like they've got a plug with MLSE, and he's like, nah, I can't. Not during the playoffs. Maybe during a regular season game, but the playoffs, good luck with that. But I'm down. It's just that's a one-time experience. I also think the environment, that stadium would be pretty good. Yeah, Zim might go. Tom is not going to a hockey game. I don't think Tom has ever been to a hockey. I'll ask him today. I don't think he's ever been to a hockey game in his life. But that would be fun. I have one other question for you. Like going forward, sort of now you're an OpTic. You're is this an organization that you want to stay long term here? Like, are you having conversations about what your role looks like in 2 years, 3 years, 5 years? Like, have you kind of thought long term with them, or are you still sort of kind of going year to year?
I mean, so far my experience has been great. I mean, I haven't really talked about any long term thing with them. Maybe that's something that they would bring up, but I don't know. I mean, for right now, I'm loving the team and everything, so I can see it.
They should hook you up long term, bro. Who do I gotta talk to about that?
I don't know, dude.
Do I gotta talk to Shro? Like I got his number. Like am I hitting him up? Like what's going on here? Nah, because I think I know your personality. I think you're a good fit with them. And they're a team, and you probably agree again. We're going back to the earlier conversation. Like people learn in different ways. I think they're not. They are a collection of people that I think approach things differently than say whenever Ace comes on the flank and he says the back in my day stuff. Like yeah, that worked with your team, but I think like you guys have a different sort of approach, and I think you're a perfect fit for their stuff. And I think the success you guys, I'm excited to see you guys grow as a team. Like you got through a lot this year, and getting second at the last event was really big, and kicking on from there to Major 4 in Columbus, Major 5 in Toronto, and champs. Like I think you guys are in a good spot to win event this year.
Yeah, thank you.
Chat, any final questions before I let JP go get ready for scrims? You guys have warm-ups today, or you actually have full scrims?
We have a warm-up and then a full scrim.
Oh, so that's pretty good.
Mhm.
That's pretty good. I'm just seeing if there's any final questions before we jump. Joey update in the chat. You love to see that. It's my guy Joey right there. I see two questions. Do you watch soccer at all, JP?
No, I'll watch like Champions League sometimes, but when I was playing like FIFA and stuff, I was more into it. But I haven't played FIFA in a minute, so.
Yeah, no, I've been playing FIFA recently with the LA Thieves boys. We're on a 100-0 run. I think we were like.
And I'll
40...
watch like the World Cup and shit, obviously.
Yeah, we're like 40-0. Well, World Cup's coming in 26, so that'll be fun. If you're still living in Dallas, it's gonna be in your backyard too, which would be nice.
Oh right.
And I think there's a good final one to ask. Guys, we already talked about the face stuff. You missed it earlier in the show. This will go up on YouTube later, so you can go back and watch it then, or I'm sure someone will clip it. Do you watch any other esports, and if so, which ones do you enjoy?
Oh, dude, I watch like every esport. I swear, dude, I'll watch League, I'll watch CS, I'll watch some Val. Actually, not as much Val, but I've watched fucking Rocket League matches before, StarCraft. I just love the idea of esports and putting on like a competitive show for people displaying like their talent, especially in video games. So like, dude, any esport that's popping up has a big tournament, I'll watch it.
Yeah, I feel you on that. You know what I'm most excited for is like obviously VCT and sort of like that continuing the growth of Valorant. Valorant's pretty fun to watch. Icebox is also getting out of here. I hate that map so much. The worst to watch. I'm excited for like the third or fourth renaissance of CS now with CS2. I mean, live CS events are just insane, bro. Especially with some of the European crowds we've seen for some of those events. It's just it's so good. And I'm excited for the next major in CS in Paris.
Yeah. Yeah, CS events are always fun to watch. Still the best esport to watch, in my opinion. But
I think it is. I don't know what it is about CS, just because I think it's such a simple game. Like conceptually, it's really easy to process and very quickly like get into sort of like the momentum swings and just sort of the decision making that goes through in CS. I don't know. It's just really simple. I really like watching Valorant, but you also gotta understand how the characters work in Valorant and some of the tactics. Same with like League of Legends, or just a little bit more of a curve. But I think CS is like just on its face like one of the most simple-ish esports to like contemplate. There's no power-ups in CS.
Yeah, but I just like the strategic element of that. I wish there was a little bit more strategic element in like search and stuff for COD. But it's a different level of thinking, like especially respawns. At least like, dude, respawns, like the way that players have to make super like smart decisions within a certain amount of time is, something that's super underrated, especially on the esports side, because everyone's just like, oh, it's a Twitch shooter, like there's no strategy to it. But it's pretty hard. Like I give a lot of the credit to the players because it's super hard to play respawn, especially at the high level, because the way that you have to digest information super quickly and then make a decision off of it is something that people don't really realize until they're like in the comms or watching a scrim.
Well, I don't want to take up more of your time, JP. It was about an hour. Always appreciate you hopping on. We should chat. We're gonna be the next couple of majors. So if you got time on Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and so on at the event, just stop over to the couch because we're gonna be there. Would love to chat as always. You guys obviously have a couple of key matches coming up. I think you play Saturday and Sunday this week.
Yeah, New York Saturday, LA Thieves Sunday.
Those are two great matches. Should be fun ones. So appreciate you hopping on. JP, as always, you're welcome to come back on, and shout out to the chat for the great questions today. Thank you so much.